because that song describes the purpose of my life. But more importantly, I open with that song because I believe it describes most of you. I'm convinced that you are here doing this work because you know that life at its best is not just about how many degrees you can earn for yourself. It's not just about how many fine and luxurious things you can accumulate for yourself. That life is not just about you, but life at its best is about service. It's about loving people and helping people and positioning people you didn't give birth to flourish, to grow, to succeed. And it was people, a lot like you, people who most of them didn't look like me or my friends. We're not from where we were from, had not been through the things we've been through, but people just like you, teachers and administrators and coaches and counselors and food service workers and bus drivers and custodians, like tutors and nurses and secretaries, people just like you, who helped us overcome so many obstacles to become the people we are today. The man I am today has been on the road for the 20 plus years, up to 300 days a year. I've been working with the least, the last, the lost, and the left out. I've been working in schools, in jails, in juvenile halls, in detention centers, in hospitals, and sometimes even in cemeteries. I've been working. And this work is not only work I believe I've been called to do, it's not always fun. It's hard work. It's humbling work. It's heartbreaking work. It's exhausting work. But I do it because I'm supposed to. And I know some of you watching me, listening to me right now, understand this sense of duty, of purpose, of calling. But I also do this work because I think it's the spillover of my gratitude for all of those people who loved me when I felt unlovable, who were so patient with me when I didn't deserve it, who were so kind to me when I deserved it least. And so I say that to say I'm so genuinely honored and humbled to even be standing before you today. Now I would prefer we were in an auditorium because so much of what I say is nonverbal and you're going to miss 80% of it because of this venue. And so I want to ask you to please try your best to hear my heart, and I'll honor your time. Normally I go much longer. If you give me 25 minutes of your undivided attention, I'll give you my very best. And I promise you something powerful can happen in your heart, in how you live, in how you lead, and how you teach, if you give me your undivided attention. Especially the folks in the back. I've learned, I see a path in our country, and I'll share it with you, I think it's hurting us. The stronger the internet connection, the weaker the human connection. And so often we are alone together. We are chronically distracted, and we have these smartphones, or what I call hand crack. And we are missing out on people and experiences and opportunities that are right next to us. And what I want to share with you is far too important. I'm not an entertainer. I'm not famous or I'm not rich. I'm just a guy who's on a mission to help as many people as possible. And I believe enough in my message to ask you, please, in the back, to lean in and listen. You guys can talk with each other later. I come from a beautiful family from Colorado. I was born in and I was raised in Aurora. And as a little boy, I dreamed of becoming a pilot, coming to Colorado Springs to join the academy. That was my dream. I wanted to fly F-16. That was my dream. But my family was very broken. I come from a very mixed family, who most of them still live here. My family is black, white, Mexican, all here. I like chicken, chorizo, and folklore. I like Tupac Shakur, Vicente Fernandez, and Garth Brooks. I come from a mixed, beautiful people, but I come from a very broken people. My father has been in prison for most of my life. I've only seen him 11 times for 15 hours total. And today, later today, when I leave you all, it will be my 12th time. My stepfather was a hard-working man, went to work every day to provide for our family. But he was also addicted to crack. And whenever he was drunk or high, he became violent. He used to beat Mama and my brothers and me. And I'll never forget the night when I was a little boy. They used to leave me home alone so they could go clubbing every Friday, Saturday night, go do drugs or whatever they did, and they'd leave me home alone, babysitting my baby brother. And one of those nights, I was up flipping through the channels at 2 in the morning when I heard Mama screaming for help in the hallway of our apartment building. And I ran to the door and I looked out to see what was wrong with Mama. And she was screaming my name right here in Aurora, screaming my name. Baby, help me! Baby, help me! He's gonna kill me! Help me! And as a little boy, I had to watch as my stepfather grabbed Mama by the back of her head and he slammed her face through a glass window. This big piece of glass broke off and opened Mama. And blood was everywhere. And as a little boy, I did everything in my power to fight for Mama, to protect Mama, to save Mama. But I lost. I jumped on his back and I tried, but I was too little. Before I was 16, I lived in 26 places. Not including the beaches we had to sleep on in Southern California, the alleys, the strangers' houses. I used to sleep on the floors of homeless shelters, on these cold slabs of concrete with no blanket, no pillow, no mattress, no food. And I used to cry myself to sleep wondering if there was any hope for me or the people around me. I was the kid you saw coming from a block away that prompted you to turn around or cross the street, or clutch your purse. I was the kid who was on the corner, downtown at the on-ramp, at the off-ramp, holding a piece of cardboard, trying to get your attention to find something to eat. And you avoided eye contact with me. You locked your door and you looked away. And I was the kid who was so hungry that I used to jump into dumpsters and tear open bags here in Colorado, sifting through garbage to try to find something, anything, to help me make it through the night. And I was the kid who used to take all those issues with me to school. And when you move around 26 times, that's 2 or 3 schools a year. I was placed in schools just like yours. And it was in schools like yours that I started noticing I was different. In 3rd grade, I became self-conscious and I started asking questions. Man, why everybody else got new clothes, new shoes, and I got holes in my pants and holes in my shoes? Why I got to put cardboard inside my shoes to keep my socks from falling through the holes, and everybody else got new shoes, 2 or 3 pairs? Why does everybody else have a backpack and a lunch pail, and I ain't never had no backpack? People got food at home? That must be nice. And why does everybody seem so happy? And I don't smile anymore. What's so funny? I want to laugh. This weekend I was thrown off of a balcony for trying to protect Mama, and my ribs got caught on a bolt on the way down and it tore out a piece of skin. But Mama said if I tell anybody in school, the police will take me away from her. And so I'm sitting here in class in pain with an infection. Someone tell me something funny. I want to laugh. I I haven't eaten in 3 days. And someone stole my lunch tickets. And we don't have food at home. And I'm too embarrassed for help at school because of the way the grown-ups look at me with judgment in their eyes. And so I'm sitting alone in this cafeteria hoping anyone would leave a little extra something on their tray for me. Hey, Tom, you gonna eat those cookies? Hey, Bart, no, man, it's cool. Jeremy, it's cool. I'm starving. Someone tell me something funny. I want to laugh. Recently, a man raped Mama. And she cries herself to sleep every night. Every night, Mama, please stop crying. Mama, please stop crying. I can't help her. Somebody tell me something funny. Get that damn smile off your face before I slap it off you. Ain't nothing fun. There was an anger and a rage simmering inside me. And I was just a little boy. And so I would sit there, hoping to find encouragement from anybody, a teacher, a classmate, a counselor, anybody. But instead, they made fun of my hair, my clothes, my shoes, even teachers. From kindergarten through high school, I had a painful, traumatic experience in school. I had a teacher who, in front of everybody, asked me why my clothes look like that. She pulled me out to the hallway. She said, "Your clothes stink. Kids are complaining that you're stinking up in class." And then she said these words to me. She said, "And if you don't get your act together, if you don't start applying your stuff, you're going to end up just like your dad. Isn't he in prison or something?" I didn't have the words to describe the anguish of how much that hurt me. But it was in that moment that my young, illiterate, inarticulate soul began to realize that poverty is not just the lack of money, but poverty is the lack of access to the kinds of people who can help you. And in that sense of the word, in most of my schools in Colorado, I was very poor. And so I started hating school and started ditching school. From 4th to 9th grade, I ditched school 60 to 90 days every year. And I was just running the streets in Colorado. I was 11 years old smoking weed. 11 years old getting drunk. 11 years old I stole my first car. 11 years old I broke into my first house. 11 years old I got my first tattoo when I was drunk and high. It is the ugliest tattoo you will ever see in your life. I fell so far behind in school that my English grammar skills were so poor, so bad, that I was classified as an English as a second language student, and we didn't speak Spanish or any other language at home. I hated school. I was placed in the back of a class with beautiful people who immigrated to this country but who did not speak a lick of English. And the teacher was talking to us in Spanish. What in the hell is going on? And I couldn't get clarification from people around me. There was this guy to my right with jet black hair, slicked back into a rubber band ponytail. I leaned over, I said, "Hey dog, what are you talking Spanish?" He looked at me and said, "Yo no sé." I stayed in that class for 1 year. And I learned un poquito español también, lots of cuss words. Things like that kept happening to me. I hated school. I hated school so much that the first semester of my freshman year in high school, I earned a 0.6 GPA. I want to show you my transcripts. I earned 3 F's, 3 D's, and a C. I got a D in gym. On the right side of the screen, you should see grades and classes, but that's when I gave up. That's when I said school ain't for me. But maybe education is a key that unlocks the door to your brighter tomorrow, but why would you drop out? Well, in addition to everything else I just shared with you, which is nothing, it was there that my best friend Alex was killed on his way to see me. Alex was a junior. We were the same age, but he skipped 2 grades. He was on the honor roll. He was on his way to college early, to UCLA on a scholarship. He wanted to become a counselor. He wanted to help people. He used to help me. And one night on his way over to see me, a group of guys jumped him and strangled him with guitar strings. And while my friend was struggling for his life, one of the cowards, more daring than the rest, stabbed him through his throat. And then they threw him off a cliff where a jogger discovered his remains dangling the next morning. I'll never forget the night I had to stand over the lifeless, cold body of someone who used to be filled with so much life. When I lost Alex, I lost hope. Because I was convinced that if he couldn't make it out of our neighborhood, he was smarter than me, he worked harder than me, he was better than me. And if he couldn't make it out, I ain't gonna make it. So it was there that I dropped out. Because I was convinced whether you're white or black or Latino or Asian or Native American and you live in our neighborhood, if he couldn't make it, ain't none of us gonna make it. And so it was there that I dropped out. It was there that I started doing more self-destructive, self-sabotaging things. It was there that I was getting chased by police. I was getting chased by police helicopters. I was doing some stupid stuff. And I was just roaming the streets, just broken and hopeless and hurting and lost. And I was walking through a park. And I saw a park bench. And 125 young men my age had been killed from gang violence that year alone just in our little neighborhood. And it was on a park bench that I was absolutely convinced, after thinking about my family and thinking about all of the guys I've lost and thinking about Mama and thinking about Alex, I was absolutely convinced that the last paragraph of my life story was about to be written. That the last sentence, the last period of my story was about to be penned. Things don't get better from here. And it was in that place of brokenness. It was in that quagmire of misery. It was in that valley of despair that I just gave up. I gave up. But several loving adults came into my life and helped me turn things around. The first man was a man addicted to crack. He was sleeping behind a dumpster. He got up and sat down next to me, and he had more compassion for me than most people in most schools had ever had. A man addicted to crack, struggling with his own issues. He sat down next to me, and he encouraged me to go back to school. He said, "Little man, these streets ain't for you. These streets are going to kill you. I'm tired of you guys dying. Go back to school. Do something with your life. You're still young enough. You can get out of here. Don't be like me." And this man, addicted to crack, prayed for me. He prayed for me on crack. And he pushed me off of the park bench. And I walked to school. And I walked into my principal's office, Mrs. Wilton. I said, "Miss Wilton, I need help. I want to come back to school. The streets ain't for me. I want to come back to school. Can you help me?" And this woman, she connected me with people, teachers and coaches and counselors and tutors, mentors, nurses, librarians, people she believed could help me. People who would invest in me because because I had so many issues. She found a group of people to pour into me, to guide me, to correct me. And she said, son, you have to work. And I worked. In that first semester back, I earned 5 A's and 2 B's. And I kept those grades through graduation. Well, that last semester of my senior year, I got a little senioritis, but for the most part, A's and B's. Mandy, how did you go from F's and D's to A's and B's so quickly? Mandy, how did you go from being a high school dropout to the honor roll in 1 semester? Mandy, how did you go from being an ESL student to someone who speaks English quite well? I don't even hear your accent. That's impressive. The short answer is I had the help of a community of people just like you. There was Mr. Holtman, a math teacher, who had this gray beard and these bifocals that used to fog up whenever he got excited. And I'd go see him after school. I said, Mr. Holtman, I don't know what you talk about, man. Can you help me? And this man would sit there sometimes for an hour or more and help me. Do it again, man. You can do it. No, do it again. Son, sit down. If you keep giving up every time something in your life gets hard, you'll never make anything out of yourself. Sit down. You can get this. We're not leaving until you get this. Sit down. I honor you, sir. I honor you, sir, wherever you are. And then there was Mr. Campbell. He was a retired veteran, a soldier, who decided to go into teaching as his second career. He was a guy's guy, a manly man. The way this man spoke, the way he told stories, the way he commandeered the English language kept me and my friends at the edge of our seats. Man, look at me. He said, before you get married, as beautiful as your girl is, you make sure you go look at her mama. Because that's what she's going to look like when she gets old, and I didn't do that. I honor you, sir, wherever you are. And then there was Coach Clark, and Brennan, and Cooper, and Tucker, and Tabazon, and Howard. Coaches who became my father figures, who mentored me, who taught me about hard work and dedication and working until I'm uncomfortable and refusing to give up just because I'm losing. You are never out of the fight. You get back in there until that clock runs out. I honor all of you, wherever you are. And then there was a lunch lady, and there was a secretary, and there were custodians, a whole lot of people who don't show up on transcripts, but your work is just as important as everyone else whose does. So please make sure, my friends, honor all of the staff who work here. Make sure everyone feels that they're working. Because there was a lunch lady who kept me from dropping out again. I was failing math, science, and English. I was failing all these tests. I'm trying, I'm studying, I'm getting tutoring. It's not working, it's not working. I was cutting across campus. I was about to cross the football field, jump the barbed wire fence, and leave. But on my way out, the lunch lady stopped me. She called me over to her snack bar. She says, Mandy. I said, hey, Rodu. She says, Mandy, come. No, not today, Rodu. Mandy, come. No, not today. Mandy, come here now. With her mama voice, and I turned around with an attitude. I said, Rodu, today's not a good day. Today, shh, come here, come to mama. I stood right next to this woman, snack bar. She took off her glove, and she touched my face. She said, Mandy, you're going to be great one day. I see it in your eyes. I see it in your eyes, Mandy. You're going to be great one day. Now you go to class. Class is that way. I honor you, sir. I honor you, Rodu. I honor you. My friends, regardless of your position, regardless of how much you get paid, me in school, and so I walked to class. I kept asking for help, and they kept helping me. And then there was an English teacher. Little white lady who grew up in a gated community on her way to law school, and she had this epiphany, this awakening. She didn't want to be a lawyer, she wanted to be a teacher to kids like me. I've heard her say that the only handicap her father knew could be found on a golf course. Her father was the general manager of the Anaheim Angels, the baseball team. She came from privilege. She was a person of means. And she said, I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to use all of the opportunities I've been given just for me. I want to be a teacher. And so I'll never forget the day she walked into our class of blacks, Mexicans, Asians, and several poor white students. And she had this pearl necklace on and this polka dotted Julia Roberts Pretty Woman dress and this attaché case. We called it a rich bag. And she was a cheerleader in Orange County, a wealthy neighborhood in Southern California by Disneyland. She put her stuff down, wrote her name on the board, and turned around and greeted us like this. Hi, I'm Miss Gruelle. And we were like, this is gonna be fun. She passed out these syllabi with names on it like Shakespeare, Chaucer, Hemingway, Frost, people we knew nothing about. And my friend in the back corner folded it into a paper airplane and he threw it at her. He said, why you got us reading all these books that look like they were written by a bunch of old dead white guys who wore tights? And we laughed because the great writers were painting on the walls in our library, and they were wearing leotards and Speedos and G-strings and bikinis and stuff. And so we laughed. But don't miss this. Duane was saying in his own inner city African American way, there's nothing on this piece of paper that any of us can relate to. We feel like we live in an undeclared war zone, and there's nothing on here that's going to help us make it through what we have to walk through when we leave this building. My friends are dying. There's nobody caring. There's nothing on here that's helping us. Please hear me. You teach what's relevant, what's significant, what matters, not only by what you say, not only by what you do, not only by what shows up in your lesson plan, your curriculum, your posters, your movies, or by who you put in front of your kids. You also teach what's not important, who doesn't matter, who's not significant by what you don't say, by what you don't do, by what doesn't show up in your lesson plan, your curriculum, your posters, your movies, or in front of your kids. I ask you this question with love. Can your students see themselves through your teaching? In your classroom, in your hallways, on your campuses, can they see themselves? Because if they can't see themselves, you are unknowingly and unintentionally telling them, you and people like you don't matter to me. You and people like you haven't contributed anything meaningful to history or civilization. You're just not that important. And you become the reason, the barrier that keeps them from learning. You become the reason the light begins to dim and they slowly become more distant until eventually they disappear and drop out. You told them that they're not that important. But this teacher, she showed up with this lesson plan, trying to cover all this content. Shakespeare, Chaucer, Hemingway, Frost, and it didn't work. And a fight would break out, a desperate turnover. She'd come back the next day trying to cover more content, and it didn't work. And she'd leave and she'd come back. I'd expect her to be gone, to become a variable, but she would show up and she would try something else, and it didn't work. And she tried something else, and it didn't work until she put her curriculum to the side. She said, what they taught me in graduate school does not work for kids who live like this in this neighborhood. It's not appropriate. I've got to try something else. And this woman humbled herself. She kept showing up and she humbled herself and she became a student of her students. And she began to study us like an anthropologist studies culture, studying language and heroes and symbols and rituals. And she recognized that her normal was not our normal. She recognized that her cultural universe was not culturally universal. She humbled herself, became a student of her students, and began to understand our patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving in our symbols and our heroes. And she started to incorporate her new understandings into her teaching. And I'll never forget the day I saw myself show up in a teacher's classroom. She walked in on fire with this new alacrity, this new enthusiasm, with 50 Starbucks in her system. She says, "Class, hurry up, take your seats. Take your seats. I want to tell you something that Tupac Shaker said." We laughed. We said, "Miss G, it's Tupac Shakur." She said, "There's a K, so I thought it was Shake anyways. My bad, miss." She taught us this lesson on iambic pentameter. She started writing these rhythmical schemes on the board that Shakespeare employed in his work, and it didn't register for me. It didn't compute. I didn't understand. But I left and put on my headphones, and I started listening to my favorite poet in all the world at the time, named Calvin Broadus. Does anyone here even know who Calvin Broadus is?
Snoop Dogg!
AKA Snoop Doggy Dogg. Snoop said, falling back on that with the hella five gangsta lean, getting funky on the mic like I know about your collard greens. It's the capital S, so yes, I'm fresh at double OP, D-O double G, Y-D-O double G, you see? I said, oh snap, that was like She starts dissecting the works of Pac and Biggie and Snoop and Nas to teach us rhetorical tropes and figures, metaphor, simile, voice, personification, alliteration, assonance, anaphora, epistrophe, simplocy, conduplicatio, parataxis, and all these other emphases. And she says, class, not only did Pac use these in Snoopy Doggy, but Dewan, look at me. He said, what's up? She said, Dad, white guys in tights use them too. He said, man, whatever. She said, someone tell me about love. My boy stood up, thought he was a ladies' man. He said, love? I never knew a love like this. Had to be something for me to write this. Hey, Ma, I ain't seen you in a minute. So I wrote you this song, and I finally decided to send it. Signed, sealed, delivered for us to grow together. Love has no limit. Let's take it slow forever. That's love. We were so proud. We were like, that's right, that's love. She said, excellent. Well, MC Shakespeare says, did she just say that? Just let her go. Just let her go. Shakespeare said, love is not love, which alters when an alteration finds, or bends with to remove, but love is an ever-fixed mark that looketh upon tempest. It looks upon the ugly of life. It looks upon the unpleasant of life. And love remains unchanged. That's love. And we were like, that's deep. This woman starts dissecting the works of our heroes, of Shakespeare, Chaucer, Hemingway, Frost, and then she pulled out the journals and said, and you can use these things too. Everyone in this room has a story, and I'm going to help you find it because the world needs to hear it. I want you to write about the time you lost your friend who was mowed down in a drive-by shooting. I want you to write about the time you lost your innocence to your pedophile uncle. And she looked back at me and said, and I want you to write about the time you were thrown off of a balcony for trying to protect your mama and you were just a baby. Right from your heart, we'll deal with grammar and syntax later. So I picked up a pen and I picked up a journal and I started to heal, writing through the tears and the pain and the brokenness. I was sleeping in a car, writing about my hopes and my dreams. And she stopped me at the entrance of our classroom one day. She said, sweetie, you have a gift. I said, sweet, where is it? She says, no, baby, you got a gift with words. You have to go to college. Do you want to go to college? I said, Miss G, black people don't go to college. That's for white people. No one in my degrees, one for me and one for my boy Alex. And my phone rang. It was the voice of an old cheerleader. Manny, I said, what's up, Miss G? I did it. She said, sweetie, you did it. I knew you could do it. Are we thinking about graduate school? Nah, Miss G. She said, sweetie, you graduated near the top of your class at one of the finest universities in the world. Please keep going. Please keep going for those kids at the bottom. The white, black, Latino, Asian. From the bottom, you're one of them. They've never seen one of their own make it out and come back. Go show them the power of education. I said, I'm tired of this. She says, hey, Manny, sweetie, go for teachers. Go for teachers. She says, I sit in my teacher's lounge, and so many of my colleagues, man, they no longer believe. They don't believe anymore, man, in the power of education. They don't believe that kids like you, from neighborhoods like yours, with families and problems and pain and trauma like yours, sweetie, they don't believe anymore that kids like you can overcome those obstacles through education and build meaningful lives for themselves. Sweetie, go for teachers and shatter some stereotypes. Give me a new paradigm of hope that I can point them to and show them that kids from the bottom can compete with the best of them. They're given the same love and the same chance. Sweetie, go for teachers. I said, all right, Miss G, I'll go. I graduated with a master's degree. She called me again. And I said, uh-oh. She said, we thinking about Dr. Scott? I said, as a matter of fact, we are, Miss G. And so I am 2 chapters away from finishing my dissertation to becoming Dr. Manny. But I got a home in Atlanta that I don't have to leave anymore if I don't want to. I was a high school dropout ESL student. I'm a pilot now. I fly myself most places. I was a high school dropout ESL student. But I can say to you this morning in Hebrew, Ashereh Chayish Asher B'Chalak Batzat Rashay Yemud Dech HaChayim Lo Amad Yoshav Ki'im B'Toroto Yegeh Yomam V'Layla. I can say to you in Greek, Antais, Glosais, Tonan, Tropon, Lokai, Tonan, Yeram, Yeram, Kaukas, and Kumanan, Alabatzon. If I speak with the tongues of men and of angels but have not love, I'm a gong sounding or a cymbal clashing. Hebrew, Greek, un poquito Espanol because of ESL. But after my faith, I share with you the most precious thing in my life, my family. My wife and I are going on 20 years of marriage, and I'm the first man in my family in over 160 years to not cheat on his wife or abandon his children. These are our munchkins. That's Manuel on the left, that's Christopher on the right, and that is our Princess Berkeley in the middle. My wife is a chemist from UC Berkeley, classically trained piano player, a bioethicist. I definitely married up. My friends, I share this little bit of my life with not to impress you. I'm too tired of you trying to impress anybody. I share this to impress upon you. When you see me, you are reminded of your power to change the direction of a student's life. When you see me, you're reminded of the power of relationships. You're reminded of the power of giving a kid another chance. You're reminded that one conversation on a park bench, one second chance from an administrator, one patient math teacher, an engaging science teacher, a loving lunch lady, an English teacher who believed before I did. When you see me, you're reminded that all of these little nudges are enough to alter the trajectory of a student's entire life. When you see me, you're reminded that your work been for generations to come. And now you might be saying, Manny, congratulations, but you're the exception. What happened to the other 149 students that were freedom riders? teacher was the exception. That administrator was the exception. That lunch lady was the exception. Margaret Stokes on a park bench was the exception. You can be the exception. Oh, man. And I leave you with this. You know you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You know that, Mr. PhD. You know that, right? You cannot make kids want an education, man. Well, I went to Texas. And I opened up for Q&A, and this man in the back corner popped up, and he stood up. He said, Mr. Scott, I needed this more than you know. But how do you reach that despondent kid in the back of the room with the difficult parents who don't want nothing you sell? You have any advice for me? I said, sir, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it. Before I could finish the phrase, a man in this corner popped up and interrupted me. He had a big cowboy hat on and a big bling bling belt buckle and this rich East Texan accent. I wish I could capture it. I can't, but I'm going to try. He cut me out. He said, ow, Mr. Scott. And he said, I beg your pardon, sir, but I'm from here. Welcome to Texas. I said, thank you, sir. They said, look, I was born on a ranch. I was raised on a ranch. And believe it or not, I live on a ranch right now. I said, okay. He said, what you're saying about the horse is partially correct, partially, sir. It's true you can lead a horse to water, can't make it drink, fair enough. But man, you sure as hell can snap some salt in his mouth and make him thirsty. You can make him thirsty, sir. It's called a salt lick. I said, thank you, sir. Have a seat. I don't know what this man was talking about. But I did my homework and I found out salt licks are a thing. Salt licks are a thing. Salt makes horses thirsty. And salt makes people thirsty. And my favorite book and my greatest influence says you are the salt of the earth. You are. By the way you love them, by the way you give them a place to belong, by letting them see themselves through your teaching, by seeing their problems but past their problems to their potential and calling them up to it. Who you are is enough to make them thirsty for more out of life. And so I stopped by and went through all of that in this hot stadium, in this hot suit, to simply ask you to be salty. To be salty. To be salty. To be salty. To be salty in how you teach. To be salty in how you lead. To be salty in how you discipline. To be salty in how you speak. To be salty when you have that little Manny Scott in your presence. To be salty because if you're salty, they might not be thirsty because of what you're doing. But if the person next to you is salty, and the person after that is salty, if everybody in this stadium is salty, you don't know if it'll be the first or second or third or 10th, but there is a number at which saltiness alters the trajectory of a kid's life. And so I ask you to be salty. Not for me, not even for you, but for every kid who passes through your halls. Empowering them to be solutions to this generation. Empower them to help us find solutions to all of the problems and the divisions and the divide and the fissures and the acrimony in this culture. Empower them. And when you have that little Manny Scott in poverty in your presence, please don't pity him. that does not help him for the real world. The real world will not care about his skin color. They will not care about his background. They need you to not pity them in their poverty, but empower them through education to overcome it. If you'll do that, then you're living. Hollywood probably won't make a movie about it, but you're living. You can never make enough money for doing this kind of work, but you're living. With whatever time you have left, that dash that's going to be on your tombstone one day, that will represent what you did with your life, with your time, with your heart, with your mind, with your resources, that dash, it shall